So my name is Michael Kowalski, and I work on the Fabric Customer Advisory team. And I primarily help customers regarding optimizing their semantic models, getting into DAX and all that kind of good stuff. About a year ago, after Fabric came out, I started getting more into Semantic Link and looking into the possibilities of that for folks from the Power BI side. And I guess that's kind of why we're here. So that being said, let's get into it. So it's a quick agenda for today. We'll start off by talking about Semantic Link, and then get into an intro for Semantic Link Labs. And we'll go over some highlighted features and some new features which came out quite recently. So Semantic Link, as Sue alluded to, runs inside of Fabric notebooks. It's a Python library. And for those of you, just off the bat here, who are thinking, okay, I don't know Python. I'm not a Python developer. I'm just gonna, I'm out. Hang on a second here, because I'll tell you, a year ago, I didn't know a lick of Python. And I think that goes to show that even if you don't know Python, you can still get into this stuff pretty nicely. And as I think you'll see here, these libraries are suited for folks even if they don't know Python. So Semantic Link was originally intended for the data science community. In fact, if you go to the Microsoft Learn documentation, it specifically says it's for data scientists. And I think there is a big audience that wasn't included there that actually can benefit potentially even more data scientists, and that's the Power BI community. So I'm talking about Power BI developers, Power BI admins. The potential with Semantic Link is really limited by your imagination. It's immensely powerful and incredibly useful for Power BI admins and developers. So with regard to Semantic Link, some of the primary scenarios that it's useful for are extracting semantic model metadata via these list functions. For example, you have list tables, which shows all the tables in the semantic model and their properties, list measures, all the measures, all their DAX, and all their inherent properties. The same thing for practically every object within a semantic model. And these list functions were actually also enhanced to have additional functionalities. For example, you can use list columns, not just to get the columns, all their names from the different tables, but you can even get various kind of vertipack stats. For example, the total size of the column, the dictionary size, all of these things are now readily available for you, just calling a simple function. And previously, to do this, you had to run DMVs, and it was quite complicated. And now it's just at your fingertips, always there for you inside of Fabric. You don't have to leave Fabric to get this information. Additionally, some things you can do inside of Semantic Link are running DAX queries. You can run DMVs, XMLA commands or TMSL commands against a semantic model. And this allows you to do various checks on your data, or even potentially export data outside of your semantic model into a different place. That's more really for data science scenarios or potentially testing scenarios. But all these elements here provide the foundation for a plethora of automation scenarios. As I said, it's really just limited by your imagination. These are the building blocks of every Power BI developer and admin's toolkit, and they're all here. Very few tools, if not any tools, have all of these things. In fact, some of the things you'll see further, like there's very few tools that have all of these things in one place. And because of the power of Fabric notebooks, you have this all in one place. And it's extremely powerful, as we'll see. So that's for Semantic Link. If you go to the QR code at the top, it'll take you to the documentation on Semantic Link if you're interested. So that being said, let's now get into Semantic Link Labs. Semantic Link Lab just takes things up another level. So just like Semantic Link, it's also a Python library. And Semantic Link Labs is built on top of Semantic Link. So it uses a lot of the functionalities inside of Semantic Link to make it even more powerful. So as you can see, there's over 300 functions specifically inside of Semantic Link Labs. It's becoming quite the beast here. But you should know that it's all open sourced on Microsoft's GitHub, so you can see the code behind it. In fact, you can even look at the code and use that as a way to learning Python to become even better at it. One beautiful thing about Fabric notebooks, and specifically with Semantic Link, is that it auto-authenticates. So whenever you log into a semantic model or what have you, you always have that annoying pop-up that asks you to authenticate. And with Semantic Link inside of a Fabric notebook, because it knows who you are and your security access, you don't need to go through that process already done behind the scenes. So it's a really seamless experience having this auto authentication. Really, every tool makes you, open up your app, etc., which just kind of is one more stumbling block along the way, and this just makes it so much easier. So, so Semantic Link and Semantic Link Labs, they provide programmatic access to Fabric artifacts, and primarily we're talking about semantic models, reports, lakehouses, and warehouses. A lot of focus is on semantic models, but we're not forgetting about reports either. And we've wrapped up most of the Power BI and Fabric APIs, including some Azure APIs. So before I got into this, I never used an API once. And you're probably wondering why. You're like, oh, he's probably pretty technical, so it shouldn't be too challenging for him. And honestly, it's these APIs, they're great to have, but they are quite technically challenging to set up with authentication, and you have to set up a C# application or a PowerShell app. It's quite cumbersome to do, and every developer has to do it themselves, and it's a lot of work. And if you want to do something really kind of, if you want to do something kind of custom, it's really a lot of work to get it done. And because these functions are wrapped up inside of Semantic Link Labs, you don't even know you're calling an API. You're just calling a function and plugging in various parameters, and you click play, and it just does all the work for you, behind the scenes. So this opens up the doors to a lot of people who previously, would never use an API. I mean, you say API, it's like, oh, like I don't want to get involved. But Sue's raising her hand. So, and I kind of was the same way. So now, like, I'm using them all the time, and I think maybe Sue is using them too. And it's just so much easier, more accessible, and so we can bring these previously technically challenging things to the masses, so everyone can use APIs and get benefit from them, because there's a lot of benefits that you can get from them. It's just because they're technically difficult, a lot of people weren't getting that. So now we can break down that barrier. Imagine you buy a phone, a smartphone, and it requires you to set up APIs to access your bank. Like, no one would buy that phone. Nobody. Because why do you buy the phone? Because it takes care of all those things behind the scenes for you. It's much more user friendly, and so because it's built for a human. APIs themselves are built for machines, and here we've taken those APIs and made them made for humans. So coming back to the semantic model, you have full access to the tabular object model. For those of you who know Tom, maybe you've used Tabular Editor before. Maybe some of you are not allowed to use third-party tools. Now you have access to this inside of a notebook in Fabric without having to leave Fabric. And specifically around this, there are over 100 functions to make your life easier to do programmatic changes to a semantic model and it's read or read write. So you can either view metadata, you can change metadata as much as you'd like. And obviously interacting with this simultaneously with access to all the APIs, the Power BI APIs, Fabric APIs, running DAX queries, all these things. You can just kind of start, some of the ideas to start percolating just through that. And I want to reiterate here that you absolutely do not need to be a Python expert. You do not need to be a Python developer. If you are, you can go even further. And in fact, these days, you can have ChatGPT kind of do it for you. But as I said before, I didn't know a lick of Python a year ago. And so you can absolutely get into this. And the way that we've constructed Semantic Link Labs specifically is that it's meant for people who don't necessarily know Python, and you're just plugging and chugging and working your way through. So with that, let me quickly pull up a GitHub.
I'd say I completely agree, Michael. I know Python a bit, but I wouldn't consider myself as a developer. But you can understand Python. I think it's quite a nice, easy to use language. And they teach it in the UK to 14 to 16-year-olds for GCSE as an introduction to computing, because it is that structured. And then, like you say, you can go back and forth and learn. So you don't need to know Python. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to have an open mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, part of the goal of this presentation is, like, at the end, I think people will be convinced that they do not need to know Python. We've made things so simple that anyone can use this, whether you're technical or not technical. Obviously, if you're more technically inclined, you can take it even further, but you can absolutely get lots of value, even if you're not, Steve Wozniak here. So here we have, and maybe Sue will post a link to this in the chat, but this is the landing page on GitHub for Semantic Link Labs. And so we'll kind of walk through this quickly here. But we have, on this link here, we have a link to all the documentation. So if we click this, we can see we have documented all the functions. These are the functions in the main package, and there are additional functions in these sub packages. And you can come here and see, all the parameters, what it returns, how to call the function inside your notebook. So this is extremely helpful. If you're just getting started, definitely want to come here first. Additionally, we've put in this this block here on feature scenarios. So we'll be going through some of these today, but there are many more that we will not have time to cover. These are some of the primary use cases for Semantic Link Labs. So if you're just getting started, take a look through here, give you some ideas of how it can provide value to you, and just click on the link and get started. We've also provided these helper notebooks, which you can access. There's a link here, or also you can just jump to this notebooks here. And if you click there, you can see that there are a set of these notebooks, and you can click on the notebook. You can download these into your workspace. And these are just different basic scenarios of using Semantic Link Labs and the code for getting started with these basic scenarios. Again, a good place to start if you're just getting started with Semantic Link Labs. And to make things even easier, we've actually used Semantic Link Labs to help people learn Semantic Link Labs. So you can actually copy and paste this code into Fabric Notebook, run it, and it will automatically load all those helper workbooks into the workspace that you specify, so you can get started without having to download them individually and upload them. This just does it for you. So, and as you can see, it calls a function that's part of Semantic Link Labs. And these two snippets here are just the code for installing Semantic Link Labs, the library, and then importing the various packages that are needed to get going. So that being said, let's now get into some of the demos. Oh, one more thing. So quick, the goal of Semantic Labs, as I kind of was saying before, is to make things that are highly technically challenging incredibly simple. And there are many things that Power BI and Fabric customers are asking for, and the product team can only work so fast. Here in this library, we can enable some of those features that customers have been asking for quite some time and put them in the hands of customers, have them try it out. And then so when we actually put it into the product, it can be done in a more intelligent way, having that feedback from the product. Things are kind of in a somewhat constant public preview here with Semantic Link Labs. So we can get that feedback from our customers. And lastly, just to showcase the power of Fabric notebooks. So, and I think you'll see that today. In my opinion, Fabric notebooks are the most powerful feature of Fabric. And they can access and call any particular artifact in Fabric and be the glue that connects everything together. So that's what we'll show here today. So with that, let's get into some of the demos. So I would hope that many of you are familiar with the best practice analyzer inside Tablet Editor, and I hope that you're using it. And I also hope that you are using the set of best practice rules that we published now 3.5 years ago on a Microsoft's Analysis Services GitHub that give you quick insight as to knowing, how to improve the design and performance of your semantic model. If you're not using that already, you're kind of working at a deficit, and you could really improve the quality of your models and design of your models by using that. So what we've done here is, in a way, replicated that inside the Fabric ecosystem so that you can get the same results of a model best practice analyzer here inside of Fabric Notebook. And all you have to do is call this run model BPA function, and you just specify the semantic model name in the workspace, and you click play. All the hard work is done for you behind the scenes, and the same rules that were executed that we published for Tablet Editor are run here by default. And you can also specify your own custom rules. As you can see here, if you hover over a particular rule, it'll show you a description as to why, give you more context about that particular rule. And if you click on any of these blue hyperlinks, it'll take you to a website, either by Microsoft or by an MVP, which gives you more context as to why that rule is important and why following it will make your model better. So as you can see, all the rules are categorized, and the categories are easy. It's easy to jump between the categories and see, where you want to focus. So you're thinking, okay, well, we already have this inside Tablet Editor, so you just made it available here inside of Fabric. It's nice, but did you do anything else? And how can we kick things up a notch? So actually, I gave a session with Sandeep Pawar and his colleague Parv some months ago, and at the end of the session, someone's asked, and they said, "Hey, could we see these rules in Spanish?" And I thought to myself, and I said, sounds pretty cool. And turns out we can, and not just Spanish. So check this out.
So we have a Japanese lady in the audience today, Michael. And
yeah. Well, let's see if this translates into Japanese too. I'm not sure if I think I did it. We'll find out. But we can put language equals Swedish, and just like that, all the rules are translated to Swedish. I don't know Swedish. but Python does.
And so, we have a Swedish lady in the chat as well. Hi, Anna.
You can let us know how we did. So here we have Japanese. Okay, the first two are Swedish and Japanese, which align to the people in the group. So that's great. And you can do this for any language. This calls an AI library built by Microsoft, which can translate into any language. And so this opens it up. You don't have to speak English to understand this. Previously, for the rules we published for Table Editor, I had folks translating it into Italian, Spanish, and Japanese. And when I made this, I told them, sorry guys, I kind of put you out of a job, or AI took your job. And now you can go focus on doing things that are more impactful for customers rather than slaving away at translating this large file of 70 rules. And I think they were pretty happy about that. So, and we kind of kicked off all languages at once. So this is the power of doing things inside a Fabric Notebook, and plus the power of Python. You have access to all these libraries, and you can do things that were previously incredibly labor intensive in a second. So so this is how we kick things up a notch. Lastly, put them into Chinese.
It's just so powerful, isn't it? And nice to use. You can read that, you can understand what it's doing. It's using the language, and just it makes sense, doesn't it? Just the way it's written, which data set, which workspace, which language.
It's hopefully as simple as it gets, right? I mean, like I said, you do not have to know Python to use this. I mean, you can teach this to anybody, and that's the beauty of it. And just by adding the language here, it just makes it more accessible. Today we work in, people know all different languages, and why shouldn't they be able to use this in their native language? And now they can.
There's a lot of love for the languages, hearts and smiles, and yes, it will be on YouTube. So we'll upload to our YouTube channel so others can watch it as well.
What I want to mention too is that, as I said, this was from feedback from someone like you, someone who came to a session and thought of an idea and gave me the feedback. And literally within 2 weeks, it was available for people to use. So I take your feedback quite seriously. And I think this is that. So
Michael, quick, what's the best way of giving feedback through then? Is there an option through the Semantic Link Labs? Through the GitHub. Okay,
so
cool.
through GitHub, come here. If you encounter a bug, you can click this to raise a bug. You can raise a feature, request a feature here. You can also go directly to issues. You can also go to discussions. Some people have been raising different questions and discussions as well. So those are the best places to do that.
Okay, cool, great, thanks.
Yeah, better than just reaching out to me randomly on like LinkedIn or it's more once it's in GitHub, everyone can see it and everyone can benefit from it. If you just kind of message me on LinkedIn, which I'm happy for you to do, not everyone can benefit from answering that question. If it's on GitHub, everyone can see it and benefit from the answer. And plus, people can see maybe the question's been asked before, and I can get the answer without even having asked the question. So
yeah, exactly. It's all in one place. It's all collated in one area. So yeah, cool.
Exactly. Yep. So language is cool. So can we kick things up another notch? So yes, we can. Had a customer say to me, okay, this BPA thing, pretty cool, but I have 6,000 semantic models in 12,000 workspaces. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life running this BPA if I want to figure out which model needs to be optimized out of all those 6,000. So how can we make a solution that allows us to scale? So that was the next project. That's where we have this function called run model BPA bulk. And as you can see here, I don't specify a semantic model name. I just specify a workspace or a list of workspaces or no workspaces at all, in which case it will scan through all the workspaces you have access to, go through all the semantic models within each workspace, collect their metadata, and or run BPA, and export the results into a delta table. So let's run this function and see what happens. It's running behind the scenes, running BPA across all the semantic models in this particular workspace. We can now refresh the tables, and we see we have a new delta table created called model BPA results. And that has all the BPA results from all these scans. And so every time you run this function, it's appending the results and adding this, as you can see, you have this run ID and timestamp. So you can run this as many times as you want to and actually compare how your BPA results are over time. So you can see how a model is improving. So this kind of forms the basis for the analysis, but wouldn't it be nice if we could see those results in a report? So we can do that too. So we come down to the next cell where we have this function create a model BPA semantic model. And this will dynamically generate a direct lake semantic model based on this delta table in your lakehouse. And that model can be used for analyzing the results. So within a few seconds, that's created. And let's create an accompanying report as well, which this function does. It dynamically generates a report based on a template that I created and using that semantic model. So come back to our workspace, refresh it, and you'll see now that we have these two new artifacts. We have a model BPA semantic model and a model BPA report. Let's open up the report and see what we have. Here we have a report which shows the collective information from running that model BPA bulk, where we scan just one workspace in this case, but there were 11 semantic models with 397 violations across these different categories and severity levels. The first page is more of a view of view across workspaces. The second view is a more detailed view for a particular semantic model. This is, again, just a template to get you started. You're welcome to use this or modify it or even create your own if you so desire. But now this customer can go in and run this across all their workspaces and see which semantic model should they work on first, which is like the most priority, which has the greatest violations of highest severity. So this is just taking things up another order of magnitude, right?
Yeah.
The first one is being able to run BPA itself, and because doing it on one model, to do that manually would take a ton of time, and then across languages, that's another order of magnitude, and then here across scale is a completely new level of magnitude. So to do this kind of thing manually would literally take you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And now you just click a button and you have it.
And I'm guessing permissions is dependent on, like you said, because it's all within the Azure framework. So if you can only access those workspaces that you have permissions to access based on your tenant, your license or your security settings.
So this currently requires you to have access to the workspace and to be the owner of the semantic model. We're working on ways of modifying the authentication so that we can allow not just a user but service principal to be able to do this, because not everyone will. Even the tenant admin doesn't have owner access to all of the semantic models. This has been since FabCon. This has been the number one request. Like after that session, there were a bunch of people that came up to me and asked me that same question, and then literally every time I presented this since then, it's been the first question. So it's something we're working on, and know it's going to be valuable to people. And it's coming. So
brilliant. It is fascinating. I downloaded all the helper notebooks and started playing within my own tenant and everything. But then you start thinking about when you want to start using it with customers, and it is that ownership and licensing that then you need to consider. It's brilliant.
Yeah, oftentimes ownership, authentication, security is like 80% of the battle. So
yeah.
Totally understand that, and we want to make that easier for folks. So
yeah, at least we don't have to do with the APIs now, though.
Yeah. Oh well, people want to access those via service principal as well. So so that's another item on the list. So and that's actually required as well
on this,
for the same thing. So
this report is there a copy of it as on the GitHub that we can?
So this report is
there like a template or anything there?
It's created in the Python notebook.
There's a if you go into the GitHub, there is a it's a report layout file.
Okay, cool.
And you can see that. So
cool.
That's how it's done. I'm not dynamically generating the visuals and everything like that. Like I kind of, as everyone does, I went and created a report manually, and then just actually use Semantic Link Labs to extract that definition file, and then put that into GitHub, and then this just references that. So similar to BPA. Folks, I hope you're using Vertepack Analyzer, whether inside of DAX Studio or Tab Editor 3. This just gives you another option where you can run this inside of a Fabric notebook. You don't have to leave Fabric in order to get this information. You can run this against any semantic model, and you have access to all these good statistics about your model, which can help you for optimizing it. And not only do you have this information, but you can also export this information. So if you use the parameter export equals table, and this will actually export this these Vertepack statistics to Delta tables in your lakehouse, which also append, so you can see how your model, the size of your model, and all the different cardinality and different statistics are changing over time. When you use Vertepack Analyzer inside of DAX Studio, it's essentially in Tab Editor 3, essentially a picture. Like you can't even copy it into Excel. Here, you can. It shows you these kind of like HTML stylized data frames, but you can actually export it to a table, which you can then query, and you can actually use it and filter it and see things over time, something that previously you couldn't do.
Got a question from Oliver. Can we use it to see which objects use most processing in Fabric refreshes, notebooks, and store procedures, etc., so they can try to optimize processing and reduce costs? I suppose you look at capacity usage then.
That's probably best to use the capacity metrics app. Haven't got into that, but you can use Semantic Link to run traces, which some stuff is coming out for in the next version of Semantic Link Labs. There's actually, well, one thing came out last week in 0.8.4, where you can actually, I'm not sure if you've seen Phil Seymour's blog, where you can visualize a trace. We've put that now integrated into Semantic Link Labs. So when you call the function refresh semantic model, you can set the visualize parameter equals to true, and it will actually show you in real time a chart showing what is using particular resources as you're processing. So not just afterwards, but even in real time as you're processing, you can see what's happening. So that's never really been possible before. And now it's out of the box. So Just it's available as of last week.
Brilliant.
And there's more stuff coming regarding tracing for DAX queries, because the refreshing is one side, but DAX queries is another side, which there's a whole bunch of cool stuff that can be done with that. So working on stuff for that.
Brilliant. And the beauty is you've got the Python library in there to make it really nice and easy to visualize. So if you can give access to the notebooks as a reporting tool in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Python has all these matplotlib, etc. for doing visualizations. I mean, you can do all sorts of fancy charts inside of a notebook. You don't have to use Power BI report. Obviously you can, but you can show a notebook too. It's a one-stop shop. Literally has everything. So, so I would ask, if this were like a live session person, I would say, who here has tried to translate a semantic model into different languages? And maybe there would be a few brave souls. And then I would ask who's actually done successfully, and inevitably the answer would be zero. Okay. If you have done it, let me know. I'm very curious, but it's and I'm not blaming anyone. It's just too darn difficult. And it's just way too difficult, and it shouldn't have to be. So now it's not. So let's see how simple this is. So all I have to do is call this translate semantic model function, specify the model name and the workspace name. And in this case, it's using the workspace that the notebook resides in, and specify the languages we want to translate into. In this case, Italian and Chinese. IT is Italian. We can, just like BPA, we can specify the name of the language, not just the language code. So it takes either language or language code, either one. And we can also tell it to exclude any characters that we want to exclude. For example, if you have a table called internet_sales, if you put that into the LLM, it just doesn't really work. So you want it to be internet space sales. So exclude characters just puts a space instead of whatever character you put there. So let's run it and see what happens. I bet you that was faster than you could translate this into Chinese and Italian. So it's done. So we come to our report, and we specify in the URL if you want to put this into Italian. And here we go. The report titles are in Italian. If you go to modify the model and look at the tables and columns and measures and hierarchies and levels, they are all in Italian.
Wow.
And while this may not get you 100% of the way, it gets you very, very close. If you have properly named model objects. Let's put in Chinese, and here we go. To do this manually, as I said, no one's really done it before because it's just too darn difficult. And now it's almost too easy.
I think you asked that, didn't you?
It's so easy that it's so easy that if you would have an organization where people speak different languages and you don't do this, there's no reason not to do it. You're putting them at a huge disadvantage. I mean, people speak different language. Make it more accessible to them. And it's so easy to do. Why not do it? And this doesn't create a new report or anything like that. It's the same thing. You're not changing the names of the columns or the names of the measures. There's a specific extra property for translations inside of semantic models that this leverages to do that. So people think, oh, am I going to overwrite all the names and now they're all in Chinese? I don't know what they are. That's not the case, So you can still see this in English as you saw. We came into it originally still in English, no problem. So it just makes it easy for literally everyone to use. So
we've got a couple of questions. So one of the questions, is the semantic model downloadable to local after you perform this voodoo magic of translating semantic models?
Yeah,
so can you still download the semantic?
Yeah, I think so. This is the translations are part of the hardening that they've done, so I think you can still download this after making those changes.
Okay. Another question was, can we set the language based on the region for the same report? Don't know how it works.
I'm not sure how that works, but like if I came in here and specified, the language equals IT-IT, maybe if someone was already in, like if they were, I think it maybe it does use your default language. I don't know. I haven't tried that.
It normally, any issues I've had in the past, Michael, is it uses the Windows language, the Windows language that's on your machine side of things. And I've had massive issues with an English report being translated into other things and just looking weird because of the local language settings from their Windows machine.
Yeah, if that's the case, then it would just, someone in France would open it up and it would show in French. So that sounds pretty good.
And then another quick question.
I'm going to pause in the questions because I have a lot more content. So we can always take questions at the end. But we're running a little bit behind schedule. So
yeah, no problem.
Okay, so quickly, I want to show you just how easy these wrapper functions for Power BI APIs and Fabric APIs are. So as an example, like you want to export a report as a PDF. This should be super simple, yet there's 3 APIs to do it. And to set this up manually is a lot of work. And now all you do is specify the report name, the format you want to put it in, the file name that you want to export as, and the workspace name, and click play, and it's done. In your Lakehouse, you now have the report as a PDF. You can go into your OneLake File Explorer, sync from OneLake. The PDF will show up there. Open it up, and you're on your way, just like that. So you can programmatically export all sets of reports very, very easily. You can apply various filters and look at just particular pages or just particular visuals as well. All those are built into the parameters. So again, you don't need to know Python to do this, yet you're calling 3 APIs behind the scenes. So again, this is built for humans, not for machines.
That's awesome.
Now, let's get into some new, cooler stuff. So we have some new features released at FabCon. And this is available as of 0.8.0. As of last week, we're at 0.8.4. So we're moving quickly here. But a lot of love has been given to the semantic models. Like we have Tom in the model BPA. But what about the report? Like the report's kind of that, abandoned kid, unfortunately, that not many programmatic things have been made accessible to it. Or, for example, like getting metadata. And that's all about to change. We have now this report wrapper. And just as a caution that this report wrapper hinges on using the PBIR format. This is a new reporting format pioneered by Rui Romano that is currently in preview, but will inevitably go to GA, and then PBIR will be the default format for all reports. And in which case this scenario will be even more valuable. But this is essentially built for the future. So all we have to do here is come in and call this report wrapper function. But before we do that, let's jump into the report and see this quite ugly report I've been using for testing purposes. But it's report nonetheless, does the job. And as you can see, it's in this PBIR format. We'll come back to the notebook and specify within the report wrapper, the report name and workspace name. We do that just once. Once we do that, we have access to a ton of metadata. So for example, let's see all the pages in the report and their metadata. We can see, the width and the height and all those different things, and even not just regular properties, more advanced properties as well. Not just pages, we can see all the visuals. And we can see not just the visual type, but also the visual display type. So it's more human-oriented. We can see what are all the filters, what are all the report filters, what are all the page filters, what are all the visual filters. We can see all these things. We can see what are all the visual objects. For example, I have a column that's from the semantic model that's used on this particular visual, on this particular page. We have access to all that now. What are all the custom visuals in the report, and are they actually used in a visual on the report? Yes or no, true or false.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any report level measures? This one doesn't, but that function shows it. Do we have any bookmarks? What are they? Have we edited any visual interactions? We have access to all of this information.
Oh, it's just brilliant.
So what I showed you, so that's just retrieving metadata, okay? And that allows you to set up a whole bunch of new scenarios. So, but what about actually taking action on a report? Say we want to, we work for a company, and the company says, oh, we have a new theme for our report, so we want to apply to all 1,000 reports in our company. And you're thinking to myself, you think it's like, okay, well, I better just block off the next 2 weeks, because I'm going to be opening up Power Desktop, uploading the file, and saving it down, and doing that over and over again until, like, your eyes fall out. So no longer. So all I have to do here is we go into our files and we upload into the Lakehouse, or we can even have it on from the web, where I put here these two theme files. One is a dark theme, one's a light theme. And we're going to call this set theme function, and we'll specify the file path, in this case from the Lakehouse, that dark theme. We run the function, and within a few seconds, the theme has been set. Let's go check the report. Now it's in dark mode.
Oh, it's just genius.
And you can wipe through all your reports in one click. Let's now put it to light theme. It's done.
So you could apply
something
this
that would
theme,
take you to all the reports as you want to. Something that would take you literally weeks of mind-numbing work. You just click a button. If you're a consultant, maybe you still want to bill the same amount of money, but you can go play golf while everyone else is laying bricks the rest of their life. So
go for a run. No golf run.
Yeah, I mean, this amount of time this will save you is insane. So, and that's not exciting work. I mean, no one likes opening up Power Desktop, waiting for it to open, and then uploading a file, saving and closing it. And this is just one example. So there are additional report wrapper action functions, as I'm calling them, besides set theme. A lot of folks have said, oh, I want to migrate all these report level measures to the semantic model. You can do that in one clean sweep, or you can migrate specific ones on a one-time or two-time basis. And there are additional functions as well that actually perform actions on the report.
So
let's take a scenario.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, carry on.
So let's take a scenario where I have a semantic model and I have several downstream reports, and I make a change to the semantic model, and I'm just praying, like, oh, please let me not have broken one of those reports. Because if I did, identifying which report or which reports and where in those reports is just going to be extremely cumbersome, tedious, and long. Now you have a function that does that for you. So let's see how it works. Again, we can call the report wrapper function, and we have a function called list semantic model objects. We call that, and it tells you, looking at all the semantic model objects used in that report and where they're located. For example, we have a visual filter on the test page within this particular visual that uses the color column from the dim product table. We can now set the parameter extend equals true, and this will look up which semantic model is it actually feeds that report, and use Tom to understand if this particular semantic model object is a valid semantic model object in that semantic model. So as you can see, they're all true. So this shows you for one report, but we can actually scale this to look at what are all the reports behind a particular semantic model. So here we specify the model name. Instead of the report name, we specify the model name from a different function. And this shows you the same thing, but just for all the downstream reports for that one specific semantic model. And as you can still see, it shows everything as true, so everything is fine. Now let's break something. So in this case, we're going to call Tom using this connect semantic model function, specifying the semantic model name, and that we want to have it as read-only equals false, so we want to be able to write. And we're just going to rename the sales amount measure. Instead of being sales amount, we rename it to sales amount 2. And if this is in the report, it's going to break the report. So let's run that. This is actually modifying the semantic model on the fly using the Tom capabilities of Semantic Link Labs. So that's done. Now let's run the function again, and we'll see if something's broken. And here we see that we do have false. And where do we have false? Where it's referencing sales amount, because that no longer exists. It's sales amount 2 now. So just like that, we can see in which reports, on which pages, which visuals, which particular filters are broken, and which particular objects. So going about fixing this, we can do it in a much smarter and effective way, which will take way less time than previously. Previously, I had to open everything up and manually and check it by hand. Now it's all automated for you. So you just run this function and you can see, everything's true, we're good. You have false, let's go fix it. We can come into the report and see, this is broken. And what is broken here corresponds exactly with what is broken in what shows is broken in that function. So just because of time purposes, I'm going to move on to the next one. But I think I got the point across with that one.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The last demo I want to do today, or two more demos real quick. We have a report BPA. So why should the model have a BPA but not the report? The report has one as well. So we actually have a set of default rules, just like the model BPA. We have a set of default rules as well for the report, which are run here. You can also use your own custom rules too. And if you're wondering here, these error prevention, these errors, that's referencing those same broken visuals as done in the previous slide, the previous demo. So that's also been integrated here into the report BPA. So you can use this as well to check, do I have any broken reports? And you saw that there are those links there in the report BPA that link to a page in the report. And it doesn't just link to a page in the report, it links to a page that the issue resides on. So if the issue is on page 2 and your report defaults to opening on page 1, it'll still open up page 2.
Someone's just asked that in the chat.
So you can navigate to the specific page that has that issue and work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, so someone's asked that specific question in the chat. Can we navigate to the actual output, to the actual report where the broken visual is? So
yeah, and so you can also fix things here inside of the notebook, right? So I know that these issues are caused because I have this sales amount measure, which was previously named sales amount 2, or sales amount to sales amount 2. So just like in the previous demo. So we can call Tom again and fix that issue, and then watch that issue get rectified here without even opening up Power BI Desktop or Power BI in the web. So those errors are all gone now. We can also fix other issues just by calling a function. So I see this, we have this issue here called show items with no data. on columns, this setting should never be used. And we have a function just to kind of wipe all those clean. So you just run this function, disable show items with no data, and we can rerun the the report BPA, and you can see that those two violations are gone. And there are additional action functions to fix other report violations as well, without having to even open up Power BI Desktop or go into the report editing in the web.
So it's the sort of same principle as using tabular editors best performance. So you're applying it to the metadata, but we're using the Semantic Link Labs to do it instead of tabular editor in this case.
Yeah, and all in a notebook. We don't have to leave the notebook, and we can solve these problems.
Yeah, and then iterate throughout the whole of the workspace. If you've got an issue within one, then you could go through all of your everything.
You can loop through all the reports and workspace and clean them all out. Make sure that you're not using that property. Like, it's one click and you're done. So I know we're kind of at time here, so just quickly go through one more this last demo here. And here the scenario is I have reports, and I want to know which semantic model objects are actually used in those reports and how many times are they used. For example, like, what's the most commonly used column from my semantic model in the downstream reports? Or what's the most commonly used measure? And we have a function that just tells you that. So, when you're thinking about optimizing your model, you want to, it's not just about optimizing the worst performing measure in your model. Like, as an example, and then as an analogy, say, you're commissioner of a town and you have budget to repave a street in your town. Should you just repave the street that's in the worst condition? Like, what if it's a street that no one even goes down? Like, it's kind of a waste. I don't think your taxpayers will be very happy with you doing that. You want to find out what's the most trafficked street that is also in not good condition. And that's what this does. This tells you the most trafficked street. This tells you what is the most commonly used column and the commonly used measures. So okay, this order quantity and sales amount measure, those are the two most commonly used measures in the report, including dependencies. And they're used 8 times in downstream reports. And you can also see the columns. Okay, this color column is used 21 times in downstream reports, including dependencies. And by the way, throw in some Vertipack stats so we know, like, we can say, we're using a very large column. In this case, not the case, but in other cases, we're using a very large column very often, and that may impact report performance. So this gives information at your fingertips, so you can work smart and optimize at the right, starting from the right place, as opposed to just, hey, what's the worst performing measure, and go from there. And I can say, what's the worst performing measure that's actually used the most.
Yeah. And also you're talking about it being downstream, so it's not just in the report you're looking at. It's then looking at the thin reports that are attached to that report.
So this is looking at the semantic model and seeing what are all the downstream reports. Whether whether if it's a thick, then it's one model, one report. If it's a thin, you may have several reports, in which case you don't want to just look at one, you want to look at all of them. So this automatically finds all of them, collects them, uses the report wrapper to see the metadata, along with Vertipack Analyzer statistics. It puts it all in one package for you.
That's brilliant, because quite often you have reports that are coming off your model and you don't necessarily know. And it would be the same if the thin reports, if you're the owner of the model, then you can still access the thin reports, even if they're built by somebody else, because it gives you access to the model.
I believe if you're owner of the model, then you should have access to the reports as well, because you have access to the data. At that point, it's data.
But if you give other people access to your model, you'll be able to see where they've used it as well.
It's looking at the report metadata. So whether someone actually uses the report or not, that's not detected. That may be a future iteration, but currently it says, here's a model there are 5 downstream reports. Let's look at all those, scan them for the metadata, see what are all the semantic model objects used in those reports, add it up, look at the dependencies, count them all up. Here you go. And with the side of Vertipack Analyzer. So, like as I said before, I don't think there's a tool out there that combines all of these things in one place. You have model metadata, you have report metadata, you have model BPA, report BPA, Vertipack Analyzer. You can query, run DAX queries. You can run traces. You can run processing. Like you have access to all these things, plus all the Python libraries, plus all the Power BI and Fabric APIs. You literally have all of these things at your disposal. So that's why I say it's literally limited by your imagination, the things that you can do. So as you can see here, we're combining things that are maybe one tool does one thing, one tool is another thing, but this combines the power of all of those tools really in one. So,
Do you need to have premium to use all of these, or just some of these, or is it just based on ownership, not capacity?
So obviously you need Fabric to run the notebook. Besides that, as long as the semantic model and the reports are in the web, you're good to go.
Brilliant. Someone's just asked, are you charging a subscription fee?
for Semantic Link Labs? Maybe we should think about it. But it's all available for free, open source. If you are using Power BI and you're not using this, I think you're missing out. And hopefully this can provide some value to organization and save you some time, so you can do actually more human-oriented work instead of work that should be done by machines. So it's time for these things to catch up to that. People think that I'm working in tech, so I'm doing more advanced stuff, but yet at the end of the day, they're still doing like manual labor. And this is hopefully one step to rectify that. So we don't want people doing manual labor. No, you want to be able to think about what it's showing you rather than having to continually do the same thing repetitively. But as you said, it's just pulling all of the different options together with it's just mind-blowing. And Python is just mind-blowing what you can do with the notebooks inside for very little coding knowledge. I mean, if you're looking at the page you've got there, it speaks, doesn't it? It's speaking English, telling you what it is that it's doing. It's listing the report usage of that data set in that workspace, and it makes sense. It's easy to read. We try to build it so it's usable by people that are not necessarily the most technically capable in Python. Like if you are, great, but if not, I mean, it's kind of going back to like middle school math here. You just plug and chug. What's the function? Put in the parameters, click play. You can get a lot of insight just from that. So try to wrap these things up nicely so that anyone can use them. You don't have to be a technical guru.
And if you get it wrong, you can pop it into whichever is your choice and then ask it. And then I find I'm back and forth the whole time. But as you're going back and forth and you're learning, then your skill level with Python becomes better just by going back and forth. It's very iterative, and you can then understand. And
absolutely. I mean, nowadays you can learn a language so quickly and get so much done in an insanely fast manner. So it's if your skill level's here, you can be here. If your skill level's here, you can go here. So it's pretty amazing things you can do now.
And what I loved, I don't know if you've got it, because I know we're over, so I'll call it too quick. I love the fact that you can put the Python notebooks in the organizational apps now, and you can have Power BI reports in the notebook, so you can really package it all together in an app that you can show your users. So you've got that development one, or you've got your actual documentation where you can actually, code the results of the documentation within the app and then publish it. So which is again being refreshed automatically. So it's just fabulous. We're 2:09 people. I'm conscious we've taken Michael 10 minutes out of his busy day. Any last questions before we go? Someone was asking places to learn. We've shared the Microsoft Learn. Where did you learn? Where did you teach yourself Python, Michael? Michael, for those that joined a bit later, Michael learned Python about a year ago.
I find the best solution to that is to have a problem you want to solve and go and solve it.
Yeah.
I've never taken a computer science class in my life. I've never really done these online course, none of that. You just say, I want to figure this out, and you just go and do it. Now with things like Copilot and ChatGPT, it's way even easier. Help you a lot. But say I'm going to go take a course, and become an expert. It never really happens, I don't think. It's more, I'm trying to solve this thing, and if you're really focused, you will solve it. Go online, ask your questions, keep plugging away, and you'll get there. So that's what I've been doing. So.
Yeah, I do lots of I do love courses because they give you the structure, but quite often it's on a curated data set. So you need to sort of take the knowledge that you have and apply it to your own problem. And that way, that's when the real learning happens, is when you're trying to fix something that you're interested in, or you need to fix for work or for your own interests. Find something that you want to use it on, and then that's when it becomes really interesting. A huge thank you, Michael. That was brilliant. I saw the session at FabCon, and I said to you it's my favourite, and I was just absolutely thrilled to bits with what you can do. Oh, we've got a question from Mukesh, a quick one for Michael because we're going to let him go. Go on, Mukesh, if you want to unmute yourself very quickly.
I wrongly raised the hand. Sorry.
Oh, you didn't mean to. Oh, don't worry. So I'm gonna make sure this goes on to YouTube today so that everybody else can access it if they weren't able to join at this time. Michael, thank you so much for your time. The chat has been alive the whole way through, with people chatting and talking amongst each other and asking questions. And I don't think I managed to get all of the questions out, but as Michael said, there is his GitHub. So please do try. I've downloaded the helper notebooks, and it's really easy to get to use it, really. And if you're owner of the workspace, it's not that you have to have service principal. You can use it on your own stuff to actually try it and just see how easy it is to use Python and how easy it is to use these notebooks, because we never could do it before, where we could list all of the contents of our workspaces and see which measures are being used downstream, and it just makes everything so much more accessible. That Michael, I would say the notebooks really is the art of the possible for anything with your data sets. It's fascinating. So any last questions, Michael, before you go, or thoughts?
Yeah, I would just encourage folks to try it out, get started. Hopefully people have kind of the theory has been debunked that to use notebooks you have to be highly technical and in a Python expert. That's not actually true, and that really this is accessible for anyone using Power BI or Fabric.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got our session next week is with Christina Ferris, who is also going to be going through notebooks and SenPy, and so it'll be another Python notebook extravaganza. So a huge thank you, Michael. Have a brilliant rest of the day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's been our pleasure. And Michael, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you spending your time and sharing your knowledge with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sue.
All right. Take care. Bye. I'll stop recording now. Thank you.
Cool.
Stop. So recording stopped. So thank you, Michael. That was